Guys, Seven back again. If you just watched my previous video, should have done my qualification for the Steel Bender's Helper Intermediate level. Should have been 10 reps underhand. And I'm still a little tired, not gonna lie. So, the other day, I'd recorded myself doing a deck tear, not the smoothest of card deck tears that I've ever done. But basically, I was just doing it to put it out there. So, what I'm going to do right now, this is mainly to show everybody how I'm ripping my decks of cards. You know, how your ripping could be different, how other people ripping could be very different. But my preferred methodology for this is pretty standard. What most, and I say most, you know, not the rule, but not the exception. But what most people do for their deck tears. Now, before I get into the specifics, I do want to point out that cheap cards and expensive cards, there is a very, very noticeable difference. Now, with these cheap cards, they measure in just under 5/8, so about 9/16 of an inch thick. The reason that is important is when you have nicer cards, like these bicycles here, they will measure in at 3/4 of an inch thick. You can see that there. Quite a big difference. Quite a big difference. And the reason being there is the laminate. Bicycle cards have a much thicker plastic on them, and that's so they're more resilient and not as prone to tearing. These do have a plastic coating on them, but not very much. So these make great beginner decks for tearing. This is the Quality brand. I usually get 2 packs of these, or well, 2 decks in 1 pack, and they're very, very cheap. Very cheap. And like I said, these make very good practice cards for your tearing when you're trying to get into it. And I've always kind of stuck with these. These have been, you know, this was my first deck I tore, and the first deck I quartered, and the first deck that I tore into 8ths. So these tend to be a bit easier than the other cards. Now I have got thicker cards. I just don't have any at this moment that I'm willing to sacrifice. Those bicycles are actually for somebody else. So what I have here, just like I said, standard deck of Quality playing cards. And to get started in deck tearing, what you want to do is you want to keep these as square as you can possibly get them. Okay? Just like that. And then I usually brace with my left hand. You're going to use whatever your non-dominant hand is. I, for the most part, am ambidextrous. So for me, it doesn't matter. It's just that I've always been more comfortable bracing with my left. So you usually do a 2-finger brace. Rest these against your ring finger. Okay? And then this first part here, this took me forever to get right. When you squeeze down, you want your knuckles, or well, the knuckle of your index finger, to be about the center of the deck. Can we see that? Now you don't want to squeeze so hard that you start bowing them out, because that's going to make your tear a lot harder and a lot less efficient. So, again, I'm going to brace against my ring finger, going to center these in my index knuckle here, and just a nice firm grip. And like I said, you don't want to squeeze too tight because you will bow them up. What I'm doing with my other hand here is I use a thumb type grip, just like this. Think how you would open like a bag of chips, I suppose, or how some people would open a bag of chips. I mean, look at me. I know how to eat some chips. So, now, what you're going to do, once you have your hand held properly on here, and once you get a nice, comfortable grip, again, make sure everything's nice and square. Don't want any cheating out there. You're going to push down with this hand while lifting up with this hand. So, up hand, down hand, up hand. You get the point. Now, what you're going for is you want this little bit of flexion about there in the center. That's going to be your shear line for these cards. Okay? Now, it does take a little bit of practice again to get that twist down, and that twisting motion is what tears the cards for you. That and a combination of torque from your hands. So let's see if I can keep this on camera here, and try to move my fingers out of the way. But like I said, when we push down, lift up. Okay. So if I'm pushing down, lifting up, see, just like that. Now you might have to move your hand around as you start tearing, because these are going to fan out. There we go. And I know I make it look super, super easy. There's people out there who make it look tremendously easier than I do. You should actually look up a gentleman by the name of John Brookfield. He wrote the Gripmaster's Manual, and this man held the world's record for fastest deck tears. I believe he did 58 decks in a minute. Could be wrong, but I believe it was that many. So now, once you have your deck in half, depending on how you've tore it, I tore this one a little further down, so I'm not quite halfway. This half here is about 2/3. So do with it what you must. But now, once you get standard deck tearing down, okay, you can come back and do quarter decks. So now how you're going to do your quarter deck is much the same. You're going to have less bracing. So, most of the time I can get a finger on here. I can try for two, but I don't always work. So, again, I'm going to brace, I'm going to twist, and there we are. And I do switch to a underhand for these because they are so short. Well, these don't separate anymore on me. There we are. Guys, can you see that there? So yeah, that's really all there is to it. Just takes practice. Once you get that motion down, you'll always get it. Now, when you go to a thicker card, you might not get it as quickly, but you will always get it. Like I said, it took me a solid month of trying, and if I didn't practice every day, it was every other day at least. A lot of work for such a minuscule feat. But, it is its own reward, really. Now, once you get into these little bastards here, you have a lot less to hold on to, and a lot more to go awry. This, for all intents and purposes, is started, but the top half is already frayed and splayed and just coming out of my hands. Anyways, guys, that is the best I know how to show you on how to tear your own deck of cards. If you have any questions for me, leave them in the comments below, and I will try to get back to you as quick with that as I can. Otherwise, thanks for watching.